Okay, welcome everyone. We have an amazing opportunity here. We have a We Talk, Workspace Trends 2025 and moving forward. A transatlantic exclusive perspective with amazing speakers. Before that, let me introduce myself. My name is Laima, Surgautaitė. I am NARBUTAS brand ambassador, and along me is the star of today, Bradley Fisher.
And I am Bradley Fisher. I am the Midwest Territory Manager for NARBUTAS here in Chicago, and I work with our dealers in Illinois, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana.
Amazing. Thank you for having us here in Chicago. So, should we dive in and introduce even more important people of today, which is our speakers? You want to start with the Chicago?
So first up, we have Ellen Fehl on the far left here. Ellen is an interior designer here in Chicago with Perkins&Will.
Yes, and next to her we have Tomas Pecek, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Head of Building Consultancy and Project Management and at CBRE, Slovakia, Bratislava. Hello.
Hello.
And then we have Kathleen Haines, who is a project manager here in Chicago at Whitney Architects.
And last but definitely not least, we have Peter Pish, a commercial director at GAT Real Estate from Bratislava, Slovakia.
All right, so we'll go ahead and kind of dive into our first question. We'd love to hear from each of you on what you think is your top three.
Well, actually, before that, Bradley, I'm sorry.
Oh, you wanted to talk about the...
Yeah, we just want to, since it's Transatlantic Perspective, we said that we want to know the scope of your work.
Yes.
And I already know it's very, very interesting. Peter mentioned briefly now as well of his. So if you can just shortly say hello and what is the scope of your work in terms of regional or...
Yeah, regional, nationwide, global, in terms of the projects and accounts that you work with. There you go. Thank you.
Okay. My name is Peter Pish. I'm the commercial director and a member of the board of GNT Real Estate. Who we are the...
Further the microphone, I think, no?
We are the real estate development company which actually operates in Central and Eastern Europe. We also do have projects in London, Berlin, Turks and Caicos, and Bermudas.
Bermudas, that's what we want to hear about, for sure.
So our company actually works in different fields. So predominantly it's a real estate, but also in leisure concepts. We have, as a company, a number of ski slopes operating in Australia, Czech Republic, Slovakia, also hotels, for instance, Kempinski Hotel in Bratislava. We used to have a Kempinski Hotel in Moscow, which we divested over the course of these last 2 years. Also Intercontinental in Prague, which we divested. Then there is the energy divisions, etc. So my presence here is actually totally different maybe than you guys, because you all architects and the furniture professionals, I would say. I'm the real estate developer, so we actually just trying to design the buildings, build them, divest them, and then work with you professionals who actually take care of the inside.
So it all collaborates together, let's say.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Amazing, thank you, Peter. So,
Thank you. My name is Kathleen Haines. I'm a project manager at Whitney Architects, so I'm the opposite side. But obviously I collaborate with all the partners up here. So Whitney itself is a workplace design firm. We also have a little bit of like the life sciences side, so we do a little bit of the healthcare adjacent. My personal background is more towards the landlord services, working directly with building owners and developers. So a lot of my previous work has been amenity focused, lobby focused. I do a lot of fitness centers, conference centers, lounges. And so I think we're starting to see that make its way into workplace a little bit more. And so now working at Whitney, I kind of play both sides and wear a lot of hats. And we're licensed in 45 states, including DC. So we do work all over the country. And we're excited to be here.
So, hello everyone. My name is Tomas Pecek and I'm representing CBRE Slovakia here in this panel. CBRE, maybe some of you know, is actually one of the largest commercial real estate consultancy companies, which is quite dominant in Slovak market. And we do cover various services, so I will name just those which are relevant before this panel. And it's leasing. We cover mostly like office, retail, and industrial sector, where we provide investment property services, leasing, property management, financing, and at the end of the day also, which is, I would say, most relevant for this conversation and discussion we are having here, and it's we call it building consultancy, and it includes workplace strategies, design and architecture, project management, tendering, change management, and everything which is basically related to designing and executing the premises in office, retail, and industrial segments.
Great.
Hi there, I'm Ellen Fehl. I work for Perkins&Will, which is a global architectural firm. We have about just over 130 studios globally, and we cover all sectors from healthcare to hospitality, higher ed, government, you name it, we do it. I work in workplace interiors here in our flagship studio in Chicago, which is in the Wrigley building. And I've relocated there. I've been there for about 18 months now, and I spent the last 10 years in London, England, working abroad for a mix of at HKS Architects and a design and build company called Octra.
Wow.
Thank you.
Impressive, thank you so much. So really we're covering it all, from Bermudas to Chicago to Slovakia and back to Chicago here. Okay, so now we can probably dive into the topic of today. You want to set the tone?
Yeah. So now we'll jump right in. I want to hear from each of you what your top 3 trends that you're noticing in your work. We'd love to kind of hear your thoughts on that.
Well, what we witnessed actually over the, let's say, the past 5 years after the pandemics was change from the typical structure of the workspace into a hybrid space, or the or mixture of the let's say the cellular hybrid and the kind of home office strategies of the companies, which I think in one side it was a slightly good approach, but on the flip side it brings a lot of challenges in terms of kind of a cultural changes into the companies, which means that people who actually work from home, they cannot tend with the, let's say, the cultural presence of the company, etc. And I think that's slightly challenging now, together with the productivity, that how we will actually tailor the home office with the, let's say, the old school coming to the office and having all these meeting with the colleagues, etc. I see that for instance, in our company, that we have a lot of young gentlemen and ladies who actually are the newcomers to the office space. And if they don't have the leaders present, because we all seniors, we can actually work from outside, and they don't actually look at us that, look, this is the leader or the head office manager or director, etc. They not get the touch or the feeling of the company culture.
They want to see you present.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what happened in like Central and Eastern Europe, for instance, because we also, as I said, we have the developments actually in Berlin and also London.
Yes.
And we see that there is a high dominance actually of work from home, or the home office kind of strategies, company strategies.
Yes.
And except for CEE, in CEE, most of the companies, they brought actually the employees back to work because of those two things, the cultural approach and then the productivity, obviously, because that has vanished. The second thing, which I think is very important, is the work-life balance or the health actually of the employees. Well, our generation, millennials and Generation Z, they tend to actually look after the health, which I think is very, very important. Well, I have 2 kids, wife. I'm not pretty much quite a lot of at home, so I call it a work-wife balance, not work-life balance. So I'll try to somehow balance it. So when I'm actually on the roads or away, because I mean we have meetings, etc., which are being held actually up to the night, and then you don't see the family that much. So try to balance it this way. And obviously the last thing I think, which is very important, and what I saw over the last, let's say, 2-3 years, is the technological approach. So the technology, I think, is so important that what we witnessed actually over the course of the 2 years, which is the artificial intelligence and all these, I would say, features and apps and softwares and programs which could actually help us to deliver and be even more productive than we used to be. So I think that's very important. And all these three, I mean, if we blend them together in the right way, I think that this is something which obviously could lead us to a kind of stabilize and balance workspace approach, which could lead to satisfaction of the employees, and obviously the productivity will be higher, employees will be happier, and then everyone would actually be leading towards to the company goal, which is, I would not say the profit, but it is a profit at the end of the day.
Absolutely, so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said, well said. Mine kind of go hand in hand with a couple things that you mentioned. I think we're seeing it across all markets, this shift towards more of a hospitality-driven space, more of that residential. I think we're seeing this shift towards the kind of like corporate museum aesthetic of very modern-driven lines, very clean, minimalist aesthetic, towards something that is a little bit more hospitality-driven, has that residential flair, which is really exciting. And I think clients are starting to realize that that idea of experience, of having a space that stands out, is a lot more important than just having a space that checks all the boxes. And so specifically for that hospitality-driven experience, we're seeing a lot more of that layered lighting, or these layered approaches towards texture and bringing materiality in that has more of that residential feel. But it checks those boxes of the contract grade. It's functional, it's durable, it still hits all of that, and we're still delivering it at the same budgets that we were pre-pandemic, which is tough. But luckily the marketplace, I think we're seeing that shift as well. I mean, we're furniture, NARBUTAS, furniture, textiles, lighting is all kind of coming into play as well. I think we're starting to see that shift towards more affordable pieces that have that contract grade functionality. That's still, yes, absolutely still, and that's never gonna go away. But they're still hitting the boxes now of that, more tailored residential approach, which is very exciting. And then kind of going hand in hand with that is, I think we're seeing post-pandemic a lot more focus on kind of experience-driven design as opposed to just the productivity and the efficiency. Before we were getting questions, and we still get questions like this too, which were, how many workstations can we fit? Or how efficient is this space? All great questions to ask, but now we're getting questions from clients that are, why would somebody even come in the first place? What's drawing them in? And I've had clients ask me questions like, well, what's the Instagram moment? What's the wow moment? And we have to, it's really fun to be able to experience a space and say, oh, over here I did a conversation with that person. And it's not just a space anymore, it's an experience. It's a feeling when you walk in, you move through. We also talk with brokers about the tour experience. When you walk into an amenity space specifically, you get off the elevator and what that experience looks like when you walk out of the elevator. That wow factor, exactly. And so that, as design professionals, is allowing us to approach design from a very different perspective than it was before. Whereas before it was, okay, where do we put the logo, right? Where do we put that? Now it's, how do we incorporate design details and architectural details to really heighten that experience? And then again, the last one I'd say is using brand as a storytelling mechanism, not just plastering it. I think a lot more companies are noticing that whitewashing a space with their logo, it's a perspective. You can definitely do that, but it's so much more impactful to use your logo as a storytelling mechanism and use texture
tone, soundscapes, different ways to incorporate your brand from a detail perspective, and not just kind of put the logo everywhere and kind of whisper the brand instead of scream it. And we're noticing that it's unlocking a lot of potential for these spaces to feel more layered and kind of go hand in hand with that experience-driven or residential feel. And that's very exciting.
And I think it makes the brand then feel more, I think when they're doing that, it makes the brand feel more authentic to the culture of the organization versus just, this is our company, it's who we are. It makes it feel more like something that people have steeped in and they really support it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would say on top of that, because it's inherently that company's brand, it definitely shows in the people working there too. It enhances that company culture. When you walk into a space and you feel like, oh, I belong here, I'm a part of this company through that brand story, that is really powerful.
Much more difficult, and also this is a real immersed experience, right? Yeah.
So coming back to your question, I mean, it's really interesting because many of things which also colleagues here mentioned are very much valid also for what we are seeing. But I'll try to come up with three which were not mentioned yet. But still they are very much connected with what was already said. First thing where we see quite focus on is sustainability. So within the previous years, there was not so much pressure on sustainable materials, sustainable buildings, sustainability as all, or ESG, let's put it this way, not just sustainability in terms of environment, but also other aspects. And this is very much like a strong topic nowadays, and I believe it's going to be even stronger in the future. So our clients, I mean, I've never seen financial director speaking longer about sustainability than about the finances, which is really the case in one of our clients. So for let's say 45 minutes discussion, the major part was very much dedicated on what they want to achieve as a company, what the CO footprint, what the decreases and all these kind of things. So it's really starting to be a topic. Second thing which we are seeing for a longer time, but now it's even more valid than ever, is activity-based working, right? So we can speak about if open plan office is better than, you know, like clustered or closed offices or whatsoever. But what we believe now is very much valid is that people and clients are seeking for different type of zones, of areas with different functions, enabling their employees to do what they need at a certain moment. Then it goes hand in hand with desk sharing, all these kind of things, of course, which have significant impact also on finances and on exercising the office and everything. But really, this is still what I believe it has quite an impact on how the office is actually structured and how efficient it can become. And the third topic, which is very much related to what colleagues already mentioned, basically with pandemics and the times after pandemic, is that the office space is now more than ever becoming a space where to collaborate and where to support the team work. So of course you need to find the right balance between individual work and teamwork and everything, but as Peter already said, it's about a culture. It's about what you want actually to achieve and to communicate towards your employees, and you can't really do that when having them, you know, sitting home in the home office. I remember times when people were hired during the pandemics, the way they just sent them the laptop, they signed in, they filled in all the forms, and after 3-4 months, they just changed employer like this because they had no real loyalty, like any connection with the culture, with the company, with people actually, right? So this is the best way how you can actually improve and achieve is in the office, being there, showing the presence, leading by example, and having places where the teams can get together and support the cooperation and collaboration, because that's, for example, where our company sees the highest added value, is when providing clients with integrated service, where you include all the departments, everyone working together, creating seamless experience for a client, so they don't care if it's office team, leasing team, if it's a building consultancy team, they don't really care. Why should they? What they want to get is the best results they can get, and you can only achieve this by bringing people together and creating space which supports the way of their working.
Absolutely. Well, you actually all already so far mentioning so many trends that we can dive deeper and look for similarities as well. Like, yeah, of course. So let's pass to Ellen now.
Okay, great. I think post-pandemic, we've all proven that we can keep the world turning from the comfort of our own homes and back gardens. And the office has really had to reflect on the benefits it can provide to the user and why do we want to come back, since we can keep the world turning from our gardens and leverage that time with our friends, families, pets, plants. So the office has had to do some rethinking. And we're finding now that the office is becoming a cultural connection center, and people are looking for that community. And we are building spaces that enable that community feel. In almost every single one of our projects, there is a large hub space that is the center and the heart of the design, where people come to gather and connect and share ideas, learn about each other. These spaces are often very flexible with modular furniture that can be moved around. We're seeing spaces used for all sorts of events, educational seminars, parties, lunch and learns. These spaces are really important. So definitely collaboration space is huge. The second trend, which is a new one for me, honestly. I sit next to our global design director, and I sometimes obviously hear what he's saying on his calls, and he mentioned the phrase empathy in the workplace. And I was like, what is empathy in the workplace? I'm sorry, but I'll tell you a quick story. When I just graduated college, I started working for HKS Architects, and I had no idea what I was doing. And an architect handed me some red lines. And I picked up the red lines, ticked them all off, thought I did a great job, emailed him, it was done. And a week later, I threw away the red lines. And the day after I threw away the red lines, the guy comes up to me and goes, "Where are my red lines?" And I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I threw them away. And this man screamed at me in the open office. And I was mortified. And since then, I really associated the workplace with intimidation.
No.
And now, with this empathy in the workplace, it's all about choice. It's about creating a comfortable environment. I mean, post-pandemic, you're coming in 5 days a week, you're sitting at that desk, and it's taxing mentally. You're very aware of your surroundings, you're aware of how your face looks when in front of your neighbors. It's an internal dialogue that's going on in your head that you don't quite recognize. And so I think now we know so much more about mental health, that it's really important that we give people that choice and that autonomy over how they work. And the third one, I think we're moving into a really sophisticated era. I think 20 years ago, we were in cubicles, gray boxes, and then it went like the extreme opposite direction where Google was putting slides and ball pits in their office, and WeWork was implementing beer kegs and Prosecco on tap and neon lights everywhere. And I think now I see the trend that very much leaning, like you guys were mentioning, into the hospitality sector. We're getting a lot of influence from hospitality, and people are really seeking that luxury experience in the workplace.
Okay, so we can dive deeper into each of these trends, I think, but maybe let's do some numbers, because we're talking about the well-being of the employees, and few of you repeated the same. And now people don't just work anywhere, right? It has to be a nice space. So when it comes to square meters, or how do you do?
Square feet.
Square feet or meters, we're doing Transatlantic. Maybe we can start with Tomas and Peter on that question. At NARBUTAS, we just moved into new headquarters, and the architect said that the norm is that you have to dedicate 6 square meters. 65 square feet per person, like for as you calculate the space. So what would that be in your projects? Do you have some numbers to share? Or if you don't, at least I know that real estate people will, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna leave that to the real estate people.
I'll take it from the holistic approach because we as a real estate developer, we're pretty much creating the design areas for the building as itself and the technology. So it's a different than to US and UK standard.
Yes.
Because in Central and Eastern Europe, and predominantly actually the whole Central Europe, has got a strict light to healthy issues in terms of light. So that means that the workspace could be only being implemented or seated, the employee, no more than 6 meters out of the facade. So no dark areas at all. So that's why the buildings actually, they are designed in such a way that the functionality and the efficiency of the floor plate is measured how many employees could be actually facing the facade, and then obviously in the core you can place all of the other facilities. So then the methodology, okay, you said 65 square feet, that is I don't think that includes actually the social facilities or common space, etc. But the Central and Eastern Europe standards, what we have is 100 square feet per employee, and that's how and that includes also social facilities, communal space, meeting rooms, etc. And that's also being dimensed for the technological units like HVAC and the air conditioning, etc. But now what we see the trend is, which is actually coming from outside, from most of the Western countries, that is actually bringing the leisure concepts or the interaction or the, what I would say, where you guys said that to have an experience in the workspace, because the new generation coming in, that actually ratio is actually even higher. So what I've seen over the last course of the years, I mean, companies are taking 150 square feet per employee just in order to provide a decent workspace where employees could actually come together, have the agile environment, and they could work and interact with each other. And then they don't have to have a dedicated office, but rather they have these benches and they can meet with the different meetings and just interact, obviously except for the CFOs and the human resources because they are dealing with the highly confidential data. But yeah, I mean, that's what I've seen over the course of the last years. And then what colleague has said, for instance, I'm the youngest one actually in the membership of our company. So when I has been actually promoted, I saw that because we are a real estate company, by real estate that means more of the construction, even though that we are heavy on the financial side, marketing and other departments. But I could see that the senior actually directors, when I was inventing certain interactive areas, etc. in the office space, they said, why you do that? Who you do that for? And I said, well, the new ones will be coming in. They will not understand the space which we were using to, because they are totally adapted to something different. So if we're going to hire new generation employees, they're not be coming here. Well, maybe they will seek the leadership, that's fine, but then they will need to seek the space, and I think our space is actually not dedicated for the new generation. So we started a small adaptation. Obviously, the senior citizens, they were just shaking by their heads, but yeah, but you know that.
Yes. Anyone wants to?
I'm not a numbers person. I mean, I have an art degree, but what is interesting is it is so specific to the client and to the end user what they're asking for now. I think specifically post-pandemic, we're seeing actually a resurgence for some of our clients of more private office heavy spaces, which was before we were going towards the like 20/80, 20% private office, 20% private office, and 80% open office. That just doesn't cut it for a lot of them now. And that is what we focus on during our discovery process, which is finding out what makes the most sense for them. I think we're also seeing on the amenities side a huge resurgence of, or I guess loss of tenant space, give back to amenity space, because buildings and landlords are noticing that if they do have that landlord or that amenity space in the building, that's going to get more retention to tenants. I know it's no secret there's a lot of occupancy in buildings in Chicago and in the suburbs right now, and most of the buildings that we work with are starting to say, okay, this lower level isn't getting used except for storage. What do we do with this? How do we make this usable? We're bringing in lounges, we're bringing in conference centers, and when we even go into those projects, we're looking at, okay, does it make sense to have 2 or 3? What types of tenants do you have in the space? Do they have their own conferencing in their spaces? If they don't, maybe you need a training center, maybe you need smaller conferencing areas. And so in terms of numbers, I feel like for our projects, there really isn't any, because it is so across the board different and very case specific for everybody that we work for. So sorry, that's not a good answer, but it is. I think as professionals, that forces us to have that really in-depth programming and discovery phase where we touch base with our clients throughout the entire process and make sure that they know what they're getting, what is included in their space as well as the space in their building, and how they work, because if they are asking for collaboration and for openness, do they really want that open office, or do they actually need specific, touchdown places carefully projected throughout their space? Do they actually want visibility? Do they just want connection? And if those are the things that they're looking for, does it really make sense to have that open office? Maybe not. It's not really for everybody. And so fine-tuning what that means for our clients is a numbers game, but it's different every time, I would say. Sorry.
I think I can give you some fresh and exact numbers when it comes to Slovakia and office spaces. But first, we should realize one important fact, that it's not about, let's say, square meters or square foot per employee, it's about per workstation. And this is one thing, because we are dealing a lot with the desk sharing ratios and stuff like this. So first, we need to realize that what we always advise to our clients, and it's, of course, it's client by client, and it's very much like tailor-made solutions, but if we say that the desk sharing ratio is, let's say, 30%, on the first place, that means that out of 10 employees, they need just 7 desks. So, and then now the question is square meters per work desk or workstation.
That's how we calculate.
Exactly. But in reality, in private sector, the benchmark, I would say, is after the pandemic, 8 to 10 square meters per workstation, right? You have something like hygienic minimum, which is 6. So 6 square meters per workstation is something which is like really, you have to achieve it, but that would be like more like a chicken farm, you know what I mean, right? It would be really, really too dense, and you couldn't really achieve some nice socializing areas, some nice amenities, those things which make office environment appealing and interesting and attractive, right? So we are moving now more between these 8 to 10 square meters per workstation or employee, if you prefer. But then we are seeing public sector where the reality is, let's say, 15 to 20. And the reason is because there are more clustered, there are more like cubicles, and the old-fashioned way of working. They are really rigid when it comes to opening themselves, when it comes to going more towards not purely the open office, which is like, apage satanas. No, open office for public segment, don't even mention it. What we are trying to do, guys, just be a little bit more like, let's not have 2 to 3 people in one office, let's have maybe 6, 8, which is still good, but they're very much afraid of it. So that's why the difference between the private and the public sector in Slovakia is still quite different, and we are talking basically about doubling the size for public institutions. but private 8 to 10 is now fair standard, and you can actually get everything what you need to have attractive office environment, functional office environment, respecting all the requirements of the clients and still be within the, let's say, reasonable budgets and sizes.
I can give some specific examples to some of our clients here. So one of our clients in the financial sector is looking to combine 2 of their existing offices here in Chicago, and they're looking to take 48% reduction in desks, which is, even the client is a little bit worried about it, but that's how the metrics have panned out for them. And this allows them to take less square footage and reduce their rental, the money they're spending on rent. So, and they're really leaning into those collaborative spaces and those touch points, and almost like a hot office, right? So people can go in and book an office if they have, you know, back-to-back calls for a few hours, and really sharing these spaces and being able to maximize that footprint. A couple of our confidential consultant clients are very in tune with their space types, and they know how they work down to a T, and they have designed these spaces perfectly efficient so people can sit down, plug in, and get on that call like as quickly as they can. But also making them a variety of choice. You know, they can sit in an open plan environment. They can sit in a one-person booth that's semi-enclosed, semi-open, so you have a little bit of privacy, but you feel connected to your employees or your colleagues. And I found that a big transition coming from the UK to America, where Americans love to work and they know how to love to work. So, thank you.
Thank you. Super interesting. So, few more points that we noticed at NARBUTAS as well. When it comes to these open plan cubicles, we still see that in the US it's quite a thing, right? Whereas in Europe it's maybe more open plan. And also an interesting one on executive zones, because we keep selling quite a lot of furniture here, executive furniture, but in Europe depends on a country. In Scandinavia, not at all. It's all like our CEO, you always tell the story.
Oh, yeah. So when we have clients in here, we show a lot of the executive case goods, but in our headquarters, the CEO of our company, the founder, he sits in a bench desk with everybody else. He doesn't have a dedicated office, yeah. So it's kind of a nice story to tell about the benching and the private office and how the US and Europe are very different.
Yeah, so I don't know if you want to explore it a little bit in that more, just to see how it works.
Yeah.
And also more of your projects, if there's something we're actually running out of time. Like, it's so interesting and there's so much still to dive in. But yes, if you can also share maybe some interesting projects and some examples, if you wish. Thank you.
Well, this is not the recent one, but it was actually in 2017. We delivered actually the headquarters for KBC Bank. It was tailor-made. It was a project where bank, actually KBC, was relocating from 12 locations into one. And for the first time actually in banking industry, the CEO, directors actually put their office within the, let's say, the mid-level management. So everyone actually could see their senior directors to be part of the team and to be involved in the interaction. So that was, I think, the first change which I experienced over the course of the years, because Central and Eastern Europe is a quite conservative countries, and it was quite difficult for us to adapt the trends which were actually coming from abroad, so like WeWork concept, etc. We were trying always kind of reject these ideas because they were not focused for the work, we thought, because they were all leisure ideas and sofas, etc. And we thought, well, when the employees could actually work, but no one actually realized that the new generation is coming, which have got totally different habits. So the old school were rejecting what the new trends were actually having as their kind of a new soul, that what they see in the office, what they experience over maybe their holidays, etc. Well, I've heard the Instagram, so I think that's something where you come to the office and you feel, well, this is different floor, different experience. And having said that, the KBC Bank headquarters in 2017, with the senior citizens being part of the rest of the teams, I think that was the first kick in which we observed throughout our project. Obviously, some of them were already shifting and implemented. So, yeah.
A couple come to mind, both from the workplace side and the more like landlord services side. So we do a lot of work with a large food manufacturer, one of the biggest in the world, but I won't say the name. They recently noticed that their manufacturing facilities were having issues with retention, and these are spaces that have not been touched since the 50s and 60s. They're well-oiled machines behind the manufacturing side. Everything's brand spanking new. But in the office side, it's still dilapidated. These spaces just haven't been touched and need a little bit of TLC. And they're noticing that the people that have been there for 40 years sometimes love it. They don't want anything to change. There are some things that they would update, but they're not getting anybody. You kind of mentioned the younger generation is just not coming in. And so the first thing that they thought of was, okay, well, these spaces haven't been touched since the 50s. Maybe we should update the office space. And even that, just trying to get these really, really out-of-date spaces to a place that feels new at all is so easy, because they're looking at something that just hasn't been touched. And so that's been a fun challenge to see just how impactful carpet can be, and how impactful just changing out lighting to LED, small touches can really make a space shine. That's been very exciting. And then on the other side, on the amenities side, that we're seeing a lot more into that kind of like hospitality-driven design, a lot more of that layered approach. We just finished a fitness center that was a lower level. I won't even talk about the state it was in before. It was very scary down there. But we presented a bunch of these different options. One was, kind of like dark and moody and very, neon heavy. One was very soft. It had, this soft texture. There's a floral wall covering. It's not really anything that you've seen in a fitness center to date. And the clients loved that. They said this is something that's very different. It sings to parts of the building that they're in. And it's leaning into that layered approach of using all elements to your benefit to a space. And even in a fitness center, you can get that kind of residential feel, which was very exciting. And then the last one, we're working on a building cafe, very similar approach. The space was hadn't been touched in a long time, outdated coloring, and we came in and it's all bright, it's very light and airy. We're adding in gold accents, we're adding in floral wall coverings again. So again, it's bringing in that kind of, those little touches of color, layering in those pieces that can add that, that excitement to it. But it's done in a very residential way, which is very interesting. And clients are loving it. They're getting it too, they're seeing that.
Do you think the residential piece is influenced more by hospitality or more by folks that have just been so used to being at home?
Yeah, great question. I think it's both. I think you can kind of see on the residential side too, there's a move away from that like millennial minimalism towards more of like a maximalist approach. Just another trend that we're seeing. And I think, yes, people have been home for, people are still home full time, and that hybrid approach is happening, but I think people are noticing that your space doesn't need to feel like a museum. It doesn't need to be work and home. You can blend that a little bit and have more of a cushion when you come to work and feel comfortable and not feel like you have to shut off that other part of your brain. So that's really exciting.
So your question was more about like if in Europe executive managers prefer to be part of their teams or they are staying within their...
Just one-off, but also
Yeah.
in terms of your projects, what you see.
Well, in reality, I would say that there is clear trend on getting the board members and executive directors closer to their teams. In the past, what we've been seeing is basically like the whole boards were placed in a separated floors, usually very much reflecting the hierarchy of the company. So the top management was apparently sitting on the top floor and then reflecting B-1, B-2, they were cascading like this, which is not the case anymore. And where you can really see that is that as in institutions, as Peter already mentioned, like banks, they're always very much conservative. And when we've been consulting these clients, they were always like hey, slow. Okay, we can do some change, but give us our time. And now you do really see even these institutions and banks applying these trends of getting close to their employees, becoming the essential part of their teams. So board members are not sitting in a separated floors anymore. They are becoming the part of their teams within the particular floor plates, where if they have their own office, it's usually also shared with the rest of the team, the way that if executive member is not on site, the rest of the team can use his office as a meeting room or whatsoever, which we never hear before, right? So there's clear tendencies and trends towards this direction. And in Slovakia, I can name, for example, we've done a Tatra Banka, which is member of Raiffeisen Group, which is one of the major banking institutions in Europe, where we've gone so far with them that back in 2016 we did a research for and claiming the guys. First of all, you need to change your working environment quite dramatically in order to decrease the fluctuation, to become more appealing and interesting employer, etc. But as well, we just realized that they are having twice as much space as they need. So we told them, you have 2 headquarters in Bratislava. You can sell one easily, because you can get all your people into the one building. If you apply certain sharing ratios and open yourselves a bit, you can really do huge changes. So guess what they said? This is too ambitious. We are a conservative bank. This wouldn't work for us. I mean, how could you imagine that? But then when the pandemics came and everyone was forced to work from home, and I have to say that also, the technological-wise, they were all also prepared for it in 2020, because they all were working already on laptops, which was not the case back in 2016. So in 3 months, a board member came back to us and said, you know what, CBRE, we just reopened the report of yours back from 2016, and now is the time. We are ready to do that. In a year and a half, we've completely refurbished their headquarters, moved everybody to new premises, and sold the other building, which was quite a successful case, and many followed afterwards. So now we are seeing this in telco operators, in IT companies, obviously. I mean, this is like the big one, and that's clear trend on breaking the silos, tearing up the walls, and becoming more like one living organism.
I'm gonna speak to my time in London a little bit and do a little London-US comparison on this topic. So London real estate's really expensive and space is at a premium. So floor plates are a lot smaller and more efficient, and they most companies ask their employees to do heads down work at home and really lean into those collaboration spaces. And they're much more used to sharing desks. And that's all about proxemics and just how different cultures relate to space. And Europeans are used to being in a little smaller, compact space. In the US, we have the luxury of new buildings that are much larger. And I think Americans are still tied to their dedicated spaces. So we are seeing a lot of executive offices, still, especially in the law sector. They are really tied to those private offices. So I don't think you'll see that going away anytime soon. But the US is also very big on providing amenity-rich spaces to draw people back to the office. Again, having that luxury of space, and what do you do with this empty floor? So we're seeing a lot of really amazing amenity spaces, like really high-end, beautiful spaces where you're like, wow, yeah, I want to actually hang out. I would actually want to hang out here because it is leaning into that hospitality vibe and that feel. So, you know, things like cafes, gyms, yoga classes. I mean, the list is endless. Free food. Americans love a free meal. Yeah, I think that's all I have.
That's great. So I think we should wrap up, right? Maybe some last thoughts. It could be what you see that people should look into 2026, or maybe simply what you're looking to find out in NeoCon or at other shows that you attend. Maybe you.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfect to hear what you're excited about at the show, and then what the future might hold.
Well, for me, I think that will be the combination of two aspects. And one I mentioned, there was the technology. I have no clue what the technology will actually bring us out. And we've been discussing that with Tomas actually over the beers and champagne and whatever we had over this part of the time which we spent in Chicago. But this is just like a new industry revolution, but it will be so fast that I think that I'm approaching 50, and it will be just too fast for me maybe to catch up everything. Speaking, as I said, that I'm the youngest one actually in the board members, with the board members we had. I think that the seniors, directors, they won't even catch up. I mean, I just can't look at them now and see this. Well, hi, guys. And the new generation I mentioned, I mean, I love to work with people. I spent with people with nearly 30 years, leading a number of teams. I was always happy to provide the experience and the knowledge what I've learned over the working with the different numbers of companies, international, local ones, etc. You can lead the teams, and you can see actually those you learn and work with, that they've been working in different places, and you get in touch in them, and they're actually selling the same approach. And this is the culture I mentioned, that when you see your leader within the team or within the group or within the company, that you rely and stick to these habits. So I think that's very important. And having said that, I see a number of young generation companies, about the employees coming now to the work, and they just want not the work-life balance, they want just the life balance. There's just no work in there.
No, work-life balance.
That's my approach. But now the youngsters, they just see the life balance, and then there is not the work word within that phrase. And I think that when they will actually see that the leaders could lead them to to learn something, and then to get to use to something and create the ideas or products or some goods, I think that will actually make them full, and I mean, they could now find the maybe goal of their, let's say, the work experience which they never had before. I mean, I've seen so many young, I would say, the youth who are actually coming to our work, for the interview, and before we had the test where you could tick-tock that if the test that didn't pass, that you actually didn't enroll the employee. Now we just go through them and we said, well, are you willing to work? If yes, we can actually teach you everything. Because there is just so many of them, which, as Tomas have presented, that if you have been hired throughout the pandemics and you just received the notebook and you don't had the chance to experience the culture of the company, and it was you're not loyal to the company at all. You just get the pay rise, couple of $100s more, and you change the company with some excitement, etc. So. Yeah, so youth and the technology.
I think my kind of forecast, it's kind of already happening now, but very similar to what you mentioned, technology. I think leveraging AI for our built spaces. It's interesting to see how quickly spatial technology and AI is advancing and how slowly the built environment is kind of catching up to it. There's programs out there that are already, 5 years underway that leverage AI to give you where to sit during that day based on your schedule or your output, and or change the lighting based on your mood, or all these different integrations that you can use. And I feel like that workplace is still very much in the mindset of AV is kind of an afterthought, or technology is an afterthought. I can't tell you how many times we've been on a project where we've been in construction and an AV vendor isn't even on board yet. So I think that needs to start becoming more of the, into the conversation during design and development. And as designers, as professionals, it's our job to become fluent in that and understand. We don't need to be engineers. I mean, we have projects or partners that we can lean on for anything like that, but we need to understand how we can leverage those programs and how they affect behavior so that we can integrate those. And then for NeoCon, I think seeing anything that could do that would be great. I mean, seeing anything that integrates into technology is always really interesting. I think a lot more furniture companies are using that to their advantage as well.
You've seen some things already.
I haven't gone to NeoCon yet. Today is my day, so after this, I'm out there and I'm doing all that. So I'll let you know.
Let us know.
Yeah, but I always love coming and seeing the color trends and how different showrooms have changed in terms of color. I think that specifically in the Chicago marketplace, a lot of designers come here for inspiration, specifically for their palettes, and so that's very exciting to see.
And the US is definitely much more colorful.
Yeah, I would say Chicago is getting there. We're still sometimes stuck in the gray and blue, which is great, but I think we're trying to break out of that. But yeah, there's definitely parts of the US that lean a little bit more into that color, which is fun.
So there are so many things which just pop on my mind when trying to put together what to recommend and how to advise to a client. So I try just to put it into some order. So first of all, I would say, be prepared to define your needs. Really, it's very essential to put together properly what you actually need.
What you want, what you need.
Exactly, because that's many times a different. There's a difference between what you need and what you want many times. So you need to have a proper and professional partner who's able to ask the right questions in order to really tell you what you need. Trust data and focus on data, because emotions can mislead you basically many times. At the end of the day, we are creating these office premises for people, for humans. So the whole design should reflect not only sustainability, as we already discussed, but also like biophilia and human-centric approach, which if combined properly with the data and research, you can actually achieve amazing results. And last but not least, I would also say that, having proper workplace strategy is actually preparing good space for your employees. But don't underestimate change management, which is about preparing your employees for a new design or concept, which is very important, because you can do the best work on the world, but if you don't communicate it properly to its users, who are the employees, you can have a real problem, causing fluctuation up to 30% or whatsoever. So these would be maybe like 5 cornerstones which I would really focus on being our client. And coming back to the NeoCon topic, I mean, we've already had our tour throughout the whole building yesterday, so we saw many interesting concepts, many new products, inspiring products. So I've already basically seen what I wanted to see, and today maybe I'm just gonna have another look on those which actually captured my attention.
I love coming to NeoCon. I just had 15 minutes to walk around a couple of spots before I came here. And I was just so amazed by the offering. I think people are so hungry for something new and something that's gonna, like you mentioned, Kathleen, wow them.
Yeah.
And that's what NeoCon is all about. It's all about the wow factor and what's drawing you in. I just saw some lighting that was 3D printed, and it was incredible, and it was modular, so it's all customizable. I think people also love something that is bespoke to them and that they can customize, so it's, you know, special for them and their client. But also touching on 3D printing, using technology in new and different ways. So, I mean, AI is incredible, and I think we're all just using it, you know, to do something easy like, you know, rewrite this email for me. But I think it's gonna start to seep into our day-to-day activities so that we're working smarter, not harder. And like you mentioned, you know, the younger kids don't want to work. It's because they can do this stuff so fast using technology and AI. So I think I don't know. I definitely see like a 4-week, you know, work week within our future because we can do things a lot faster, leveraging, you know, new technology that is just, you know, growing so fast.
So interesting to listen to you. Thank you so much. I loved it personally. We have a little present. Maybe you want to say your final word. I'll bring it.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys for taking the time to put some thoughts together and spend the morning with us. I know NeoCon's very busy. There's a lot to see, a lot to do, a lot of people to see. So we appreciate you sharing your insights and look forward to hopefully continuing the conversation.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe it's too heavy to carry you to hand luggage, but it's fine.